I'm going to tell you my least favorite small talk conversation that I have. Someone comes up to me and they say, Father, I used to be Catholic, but I used to be Catholic, but. And then they give some sort of explanation justifying why it is they no longer go to church and why they don't believe. And I think they're looking for some sort of validation from me, but I can't give that validation. And I find that statement, I used to be Catholic, but, to be very troubling for a number of reasons. Here are some of the responses they give me when they say that. I used to be Catholic, but I couldn't reconcile the church's teaching on morality or marriage with my own life. I used to be Catholic, but after the abuse scandals, I lost trust in the institution of the church. I used to be Catholic, but I married someone who's not, and we started going to their church instead. I used to be Catholic, but I started reading the Bible on my own and ended up in a different denomination. I used to be Catholic, but the Mass felt boring and repetitive, and I wanted something more engaging. These are only just a handful of the responses that I've heard over the years. And just in the last few weeks, I've heard this statement a number of times. Usually happens in casual conversation at a funeral dinner or wedding reception, or just when I'm out and about and people learn that you're the priest in town and all of that. What I don't like about this statement, I used to be Catholic, but, is that I see that it is a rejection of everything that the church has stood for and everything that the church offers. I used to be Catholic, but I don't want this anymore. And I see what the church offers as a great gift, something very beautiful that we're able to receive. Our second reading at Mass this weekend talks to us about Abraham and all the things that he received from God, what the reading calls an inheritance of faith. Well, that's how I look at our faith. That's how I look at the church, that we have this beautiful inheritance, and we can either accept that inheritance or we can reject it. Our gospel says, where your heart is, there your treasure will be. Well, I want my heart to be steeped and rooted in the life of the church so that the church is the treasure of my life. I used to be Catholic, but have you heard that statement? Now, I think that you and me, all of us who profess and believe the Catholic faith, who come to Mass Sunday after Sunday, that we should be able to say, I am Catholic because, and that if we hear that statement, that we're able to give witness, that we're able to give testimony to the beauty of the inheritance, the tradition, the treasure of our Catholic faith. I am Catholic because not I am Catholic not because the Mass is boring and repetitive, but I'm Catholic because the Mass is something that's been going on for centuries after centuries. I'm Catholic because I look at the early centuries of the church where St. Justin Martyr wrote his Apologia, and I see the Mass traced there. I'm Catholic because of this beautiful tradition. I'm Catholic because of the Holy Eucharist. That what Jesus said on the night of the Last Supper, this is my body, this is my blood, do this in remembrance of me, that the mega church down the road isn't celebrating the Eucharist. They aren't doing this in remembrance of him, but we have been doing this century after century. We've been fulfilling that mandate of Jesus. I'm Catholic because in the Eucharist, Jesus gives us his body, blood, soul, and divinity. He becomes food for our life. And he promises that whoever eats his body and drinks his blood will live forever. I am Catholic because I'm a terrible sinner and I need God's mercy and forgiveness. And that when Jesus told the apostles that whoever sins they forgive, they will be forgiven. And when St. James writes, confess your sins to one another, I'm Catholic because I experience pardon and peace through the prayer of absolution during the sacrament of reconciliation. I'm Catholic because of Mother Mary. I've heard stories time and again about the power of her intercession. And so I'm Catholic because I've felt the power of those prayers every time I pray the Hail Mary. I'm Catholic because of all the wonderful saints that we have in the church that have dedicated their life to God, whose stories inspire me. Take today, August 10th, the story of St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence was living at a time of persecution in the church, and the ruler comes to him and says, Lawrence, bring to me all the treasures of the church. Now, this ruler wanted him to bring gold and silver and riches, but St. Lawrence instead gathers the poor, gathers the lay people, and brings them, and he says to the ruler, these are the treasures of the church. I'm Catholic because of stories of saints like this who really believed what they believe. I'm Catholic because of all of these things. Maybe when someone says to us, I used to be Catholic, but if we're able to articulate the reasons why we're Catholic, why we come to Mass Sunday after Sunday, why we believe, even given all of the reasons that they might not believe. If we know our answer, maybe that will compel someone to change in their life. Why are you Catholic? Why do you go to Mass Sunday after Sunday? What's your answer?